Hi folks, I'm Shrew. We're going to be talking all things Night Goblin, specifically Night Goblin Fanatics. This is the melee type with sword infantry. As we know, they're pretty weak, low armour. They do have poison attacks though, and they do have the stalk ability. In addition to these sorts of Night Goblin Fanatics, we also have the bow and arrow sort. This lot also are poison and also have stalk. Now what do these two have that's worth talking about? Well, in update 4 we've seen a change to the goblin loons that come with these fanatic units, and we're going to see if they're useful or viable in some testing. So this is the new ability, spinning loons. You get three clickies of this per battle, 3 uses of this per battle, then on a 90-second cooldown. It counts as a vortex. The duration is 12 seconds, and that's from the moment that you click to release these three spinning loons that go off slightly in a bit of a random direction across the ground. You cannot use if you're climbing or on a wall, and you can't target if climbing, flying or on a wall. Now they do armor piercing damage, which is worth noting, and there are 3 of them, and they can travel out quite a way. So it says here strong versus multiple units. If you can get them into the thick of an enemy army all bunched up, they could be quite useful. They are unpredictable, and they don't really do much against a single unit. So they also have some other weaknesses. They're no use at all against large creatures. But we'll do some testing and I'll show you what I mean. First of all, let me just demonstrate how you actually use these things. So you click on the little clicky button here, and then you get this target cone coming out of it. You can target it relatively easy. You can see there's a bit of a gap between the unit at the moment, and now as I drag the cursor in closer to the unit, the beginning of the cone is getting much closer to the unit. The beginning of the cone is where the loons will appear from, right? So you can hit your own troops with this. It also becomes much harder to aim, as you can see here. You've got a kind of clock face centered around your unit. As if you move the cursor much further away from the unit, it becomes much easier to aim like this. So in the heat of the battle, it's much easier to do it like this. But of course, you're firing the loons further away. There they go. So it's quite nice. You get 3 of them, and they do cover quite a decent amount of ground. Alright, let's get this second one. So I'll demonstrate now. You can clip your own unit with this. This sometimes might be more useful if you're engaged in melee and you want to get the enemy unit, but it will knock your own men down. It doesn't seem to do that much damage to like friendly gobbos though. You can see there it's done not all that much damage. I think it's done like 23 damage, something like that, compared to the other unit. Now then, you can also do this firing it in any direction. You can see my gobbos are running the other way, and now we've fired some loons off backwards. That's quite helpful. That can be especially helpful for archer units. Here we go into our first test. This is just some Night Goblins versus some Empire Swordsmen, and I wanted to just do this as a kind of benchmark test to show you what it's like just in a head-to-head fight. So we've got our Night Gobbos, cost of 450 against the Empire Swordsmen, and they will duke it out. It's a fairly even matchup, as you can see, and it could go either way. I think depending on who gets a slightly better charge or battle circumstances, but look, we start wavering on the Gobbos side, they start wavering, and eventually, in fact, the Gobbos do win here, but it's so close, who knows what's going to happen. Okay, so now we're going to go and show you the first type of release of these Gobbos. So we're releasing this on the charge. So we're continuing to charge, and we've released the loons. As you can see, because we've got forward momentum with the Gobbos, we're really getting clipped by our own loons. So this is obviously not necessarily an ideal scenario, but if you have a look, you can already see we've not taken a lot of damage there from them, but the swordsman took a lot of damage from those loons. So it is kind of viable, and it's basically flattened most of that swordsman unit whilst only knocking down a fair few Night Goblins. You can see here that had a massive impact on the overall battle between these two units. and the Night Goblins do take down the swordsmen with a lot greater ease. So that's a cost of additional 50 points for these fanatics compared to the standard Night Goblins. Here's another test. This time we're going to engage in a combat first of all, and then we're going to fire out the loons once we've already engaged. Now you can mess around with the angle doing this, of course, but this particular one is going to be with the easy aim, and the beginning of the cone is going to be right at the back of the swordsman, and as you'll see, it doesn't really clip any of them. It hits like one or two maybe. Yeah, I mean even one of them that it hit. So you could maybe have more success from doing it along the line, but I don't recommend releasing loons once you're engaged unless you're going for something that's behind the unit you're engaged with. Now this is what I think is potentially the preferred way of doing it, which is firing off the loons from a standing position, from a braced or just a stationary position, and then following up with a charge. Now you can see that we didn't get hit this time, and the swordsmen are getting the full brunt of all of these loons in their face, and it's going to do quite a lot. Oh, these are, how cool are these things? It's going to do a lot of disruption, and you'll see something wonderful here is it's completely stopped the swordsman's charge, and now we're able to counter charge. They're all facing the wrong way. They're really disrupted, those swordsmen. It literally stopped their charge dead. It didn't do a huge amount of damage, but it did do some damage. They took maybe what, a fifth or a sixth of hit points worth of damage there. And we'll see again here when we speed this battle up that the goblins are going to come out on top, but only really in a similar kind of a way as we did the last time when we charged with the fanatic. Now we can test them up against some greatswords, a much more challenging enemy. They do very well with the disruption, once again completely stopping the greatswords in their tracks and then being able to counter charge, doing a reasonable amount of damage straight off. The greatswords, however, quickly win the fight. Now we're going to have a look at the 8-peak Loonies, who are the regiment of renown version of the Goblin Fanatics. Now look at them, they've got dwarf and chains. Dwarves and chains are so amazing. Look at them, send them flying. So the 8-peak Loonies have a more powerful version of this loons being released. Look how much damage they did to the swordsmen there. We can see that it's significantly more than we saw from the regular goblin loons. And they follow up by just smashing the swordsmen. They win that very, very convincingly. They do cost a lot more at 600 points. So it's an additional 150 to the Night Goblin Fanatics. Now we're going to give these guys a go against the great swords. Once again, huge amount of disruption to the unit. Once again, hilarious stupid Umis flying through the air. Look at them, stupid shiny faced gits. Completely disrupts their unit formation and their charge is lost. They have to go back to retain unit cohesion, and then we're able to counter charge with the 8-peak Loonies. They've done a bit of damage to the great swords. They are doing armor piercing damage, but it's not an outrageous amount of damage. Of course, they are a unit with 9 rank chevrons as well, so they are going to perform better than the standard Night Goblin Fanatics. In addition to that, the 8-peak Loonies are unbreakable, so they will literally fight down to the last goblin. Because they do that, you sometimes get the chance to use the Loonies clicky once again, as we're able to do here, and cause a bit more damage and a bit more disruption to the greatswords. Something that can be useful about the Goblin Fanatics is the ability to penetrate the lines of the enemy. So you can see those fanatics go flying off behind the greatswords and plough into whatever's behind. If it's archers or a second rank of infantry, or if it's artillery, whatever it is back there, you can send them in. Yeah, as expected here, the greatswords won, but they've taken a lot of damage there. They're down to what? Under a half, not quite a third. Now we're going to see, we've got some Gobbo Fanatic archers. I just want to demonstrate what these things are like against units that are large. Here they come, and have absolutely no effect on large units. Large sized creatures, I should say. So they just got completely owned on that charge by the Empire Knights, as you would expect. Okay, we've seen a lot of the melee Gobbos. Now let's have a look at the archers a little bit. By no means is this a great test, but I just wanted to demonstrate that the archers possibly have some interesting uses. In this example, we're seeing them firing on some greatswords and really slowing them down with the poison. Now, obviously normal Night Gobbo archers have got this, so far so good. But the extra trick that the Fanatics have got up their sleeves, of course, is the Goblin Loons. And here they come now. So the Gobbo Loons are going to be able to disrupt the charge here of the greatswords and give extra time for the skirmishers to get away, and potentially giving us some additional options when on the battlefield. So what do you think? Is this going to be more useful? I think I prefer the Goblin Archers to the melee, but I can see uses for both of them. In this example, they were quite easily able to take down the greatswords. So what have we learned from all this testing? Let's start with the cons. Fairly expensive considering their stats. The goblins come in at 450 and the archers 550. We're talking about the Night Goblin Fanatics here. They cost 50 points a piece more than their Night Goblin equivalent. So you're paying 50 gold per unit for the loons. They do have low morale. The loons themselves are somewhat unpredictable and can go off in all sorts of directions and can be hard to use at some points. They're absolutely no use at all versus large creatures of any sort, and even heroes on foot won't be affected by them. The loons also have an associated micro cost which is quite significant. You have to target each squad individually. On the upside, all Night Goblins have got Stalk and Poison, and those two abilities combined offer a huge amount of tactical flexibility to these units. Then when you add Fanatics on, you get the Loons, and they give even more options. The Loons can completely halt enemy charges, as we've seen. In addition to that, they can disrupt large amount of enemy units and enemy formations in general. Those Loons spin off in all directions and can cause a lot of mayhem. They can definitely reach skirmishers or second line, more squishy melee targets, whatever it is that you're going for that's being blocked by that main line of spears or main line of heavy infantry or whatever it is. So they could be useful in that way too. Most importantly of all, Gobbos are the best! Let me know what you think. Do you think that the Goblin Fanatics are more viable now in update form? Can you see any other uses for them that I haven't come up with? Whatever your thoughts are, please do let me know. I would love to have a bit of discussion about this. I've had a couple of interesting battles with these so far, and I would really love to see some cool replays of them being used with some interesting effects. Maybe we can share a couple of those videos. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate that. If you found this interesting and you want to see more content like this, please do consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll talk to you all soon. Take good care. Bye. And if you like Gobbos, check out my Let's Play Gobbos campaign. Gobbos only, no stinking orcs, with Skarsnik.